Happy Monday or Sunday, depending where you are. I hope everyone's having a good weekend. My name is Sky. I'm a raw vegan. I save my life with foods, raw foods. I've had over 60 surgeries, 7 major organs removed, including my stomach, duodenum, and top of intestines. And I come on here and I share, well, what's going on in my life. I share a lot because it seems to help lots of people. So, yeah, I just did a great live with Kiko, a podcast. So you have to go over and have a look. But hey, Tessa, I wanted to follow up on what I spoke about because I realized like it was a podcast and I was getting into like just continually talking because I do feel like mast cell activation is like my life because it's the last thing I'm trying to heal on this raw food diet. And I don't know whether I'll ever actually heal it because I'm missing so many organs. My immune system is going to be heightened. Like it's doing its job. Don't ever discredit that your immune system isn't doing its job. So we want that. So don't think that histamines are bad or that anything your body is doing is bad. A lot of the time it's our body's doing its job. And if we don't like what it's doing, we need to change. We don't need to like suppress the body. We need to be like, oh, the body's doing this and the body's doing that. And I did a big talk on Saturday night for me, which was, I think, Saturday morning or Friday for a lot of people, about how when I go into pain, and I've only noticed this now being on a raw food diet, instead of getting the pain signal, I tend to get, you need a cigarette, you need to go have some coffee, you need some alcohol. And this comes, I was in chronic pain for many years on massive doses of painkillers to the point they had Botox in the spine, they had me in cardiac units on ketamine, having the 60 surgeries. Most of those were to remove glands, ligaments, nerves, cauterizing areas to stop pain. So it doesn't surprise me that I get a signal for something to basically numb me, raise dopamine, and distract me, which is what coffee, essentially, usually it's coffee, but recently I noticed cigarettes are coming up. I don't have them, okay? They're not in, but I don't look at it like my body does anything without purpose. It doesn't go, hey, Sky, you're a bad person. I'm going to just start bringing up addictive tendencies. You know, right now I've decided to just bring them up. I like to look at what's going on. And what I do notice is if I do some sort of cardio exercise, I do much better, which raises dopamine and adrenaline, just like coffee or smoking or vaping would have done. But I then thought to myself, this has been going on for a while, what's going on? And when I looked down on Saturday, I had a more bloated, it wasn't huge, bloated stomach. And I thought, just sit with yourself, just listen, how do you actually feel? And I'm like, I've got a bit of a flare up. And instead of my body saying, hey, Sky, you have pain, you feel a bit bloated, it has a tendency to go, send me an addictive tendency. And it's because that would have been a coping mechanism for me in my most sickest. So it makes sense. The body just stops sending you pain signals. It's like, we're going to fix this. We're going to fix it. Well, not fix it. We're going to not feel this. We're going to not feel this. So I think it's really important if you start having cravings for any, it could be junk food, whatever your addictive tendency is, feel, because a lot of people contacted me and said, Sky, this happens when emotional things come up. And I actually believe a lot of my physical pain is blocking emotional pain. So someone can't miss their entire life like I did and not have emotional ramifications. And in doing that, I think my body sends me pain signals, but doesn't even send me pain signals anymore because like I actually have physical things that like I'm more swollen, I'm fatigued, but I didn't notice them. These addictive tendencies. Hello. I think it's so important for people to stop and feel when they get asked for something like that will stimulate them, okay? Because it's actually almost a relief because then the feeling or craving kind of moves away and I'm like, well, let's deal with this, okay? And I have had, and I spoke about this, I have had mast cell activation syndrome, I think since I got chickenpox as a kid, and it can display itself in many ways with joint pain, fatigue, POTS, my blood sugar would set off like rashes, blood sugar changes would set off rashes, joint pain, nerve pain. And it comes in different ways. And I'm on a high omega-3 diet. which acts as an antihistamine. I find a lot of minerals, and not having blood sugar changes really stabilizes me. And the other thing I finally decided to add in, so I also take magnesium at night, which is a natural antihistamine. And after talking to one of you guys online yesterday, I have decided to add in quercetin, and it does work. Yesterday afternoon, I went for a drive with Dad, and I had the nerve pain from Mast Cell Activation Syndrome. And instead of getting the feeling, I was like, I need to drink or I need to have coffee, that came up. And I'm like, you know what, Sky? You have tried not to have anything extra synthetic in your body for a long period of time. Now is the time that, what else are you going to do? So quercetin does work. I'm pretty sure it's an amino acid, which is acting as an enzyme, which bromelain also acts as an analgesic. So there's bromelain in this as well, and quercetin, and it really works well. I also tried some vitamin C, and this is all natural. It's just all plants like cherries and goji berries, rosehip, plum. I think it might have set me off a bit. I've got a feeling the vitamin C may take a long time. So if you've got mast cell activation, anything, can I open this? This is just plants, dried plants, and dried plants do set me off. I can't have dried food. But it kind of looks like dried stuff. I'm not great. It wasn't too bad, but I'm wondering if this over time will work better. So Tessa, I struggle with that as well. Flare-ups can be a vicious cycle, hard to break. They can. Now, I do think out of all the remedies, so I do find having a tablespoon of my flaxseed oil works. It will calm my system immediately. Okay, immediately. I take it generally as well. I've noticed that doing the chia and flax seeds can leave me more swollen the next day, which makes sense. I've got no stomach. Then when I do the flax oil, the payoff is the flax oil is not as natural and you can feel it, but I have a very hydrating diet with a lot of green juices. I've got in the description, there is a folder on mast cell activation you guys can grab. It has what I eat in a day. But if I was to say what the best remedy at this stage, and this has only been a day, is the quercetin. I got up this morning and took some, and I'm feeling great. So I don't get the general scratchy eyes and runny nose. What I do get is when I'm being set off by a food, I start sneezing. First off, it's the sneezing. Then it's like, I feel like it's like I get warm, and I get in the joints connective tissue. I get it's like tinnitus, or the scratching is like I get in my joints. And then it's like all the nerves are irritated. But then I think what happens is my brain, instead of going, Sky, you need to have water or you need to rest, it goes, you need alcohol, you need caffeine, you need cigarettes, things that I had a lot of access to. It doesn't usually send me painkiller relief. And I don't know, maybe I was on heavy painkillers for a long period of time. It tends to send me things I think that I had used maybe for a long period of time to help distract me from pain. But then I was like, after speaking to someone online yesterday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this stuff and see how it goes. So can I have a shout out? So close to 1K. I'm subbed and I'm going to give away. I'll have to look at your channel first, but hello there, Cosmic Cow. Yeah, so I'm doing this because I wanted to I just did a live with Kiko, and I tended to be like explaining a lot. What I did want to explain about the diet that I do is that because I like the feeling of raw foods, it makes me feel electric and alive. The reason I don't do, and I do admire Dr. Brooke Goldner, she's amazing, but I do a low histamine diet of hers. And I also do an extremely hydrating diet. So I find that I need more juices. And that may be having no stomach. I just noticed that there's a lot of density from seeds or oils, and I cannot consume the amount of salt. I do find dehydration sets off mast cell activation syndrome. And with that being said, is if I have more than a few cracks of sea salt, because sea salt can stabilize mast cells, but then what tends to happen is I start to notice I lock up in my joints when I get dehydrated, and that, well, I don't know whether that's ever set off mast cell activation syndrome, but it's painful. It's very painful anytime I get dehydrated. So I like to stay hydrated, a little bit of extra salt, and these things seem to be helping me along the way. So Hello, Andy. So I hope that that's some things there um, that that can help you guys. And it's all an experiment. I've actually had a lot of clients who use quercetin and vitamin C to help stabilize. But what I always say to people is make sure you try foods and elimination first, because if you have an overactive mast cell activation system from histamines, and mast cells, for those who are interested, are part of the immune system, are very loved. We love them because they go when we get a bruise or a sore ankle or a virus or a flu. But many people get things like COVID or viruses like shingles or chickenpox, and then afterwards they can't get back to work. They have chronic swollen glands, they may have aches and pains in their body, they find they've now got food allergies going on, and it can go on for years. And this is the mast cells which act in the immune system when a pathogen or allergen or something comes in, don't turn off. We stay inflamed. So when we're around fragrance or when we're around higher histamine foods or we've overexerted ourselves, is these mast cells go out. And then people are like, well, I don't have any rashes, I don't have any scratchy eyes, I don't have any anaphylaxis. Well, you can have gut issues, you can have fatigue, you can get blood sugar issues, you can get I don't know if there's a symptom you can't get, and everyone's symptoms seem to be different. So if you've tried everything, and here's another example, a lot of girls with PDD found, and that is premenstrual dysmorphic disorder, where you get extreme PMS to the point a lot of girls end up suicidal, and they take an antihistamine and they don't have any symptoms because these are histamines. Histamines are involved in all these inflammation and pain. It's just some people it's overactive, and how it displays is going to be different in each person. So also about antihistamines, please know they only sit on the receptor side and they block the histamines which they don't get rid of any histamines, and they don't get rid of mast cells activating, they just block receptor sites, so you get less symptoms, okay? So where the histamines usually act on nerves or neurotransmitters, they're blocked. And it can be a good way to see if you have mast cell activation, but there are natural antihistamines like quercetin, vitamin C, magnesium. I also use probiotics and enzymes. Not having a stomach, this helps. We want things broken down. Any excess food sitting in the gut can set off a mast cell situation. What I find about doing a higher greens diet with the seeds or the flaxseed oil is because it's denser, you become stronger over time, meaning I have more hair, my nails are better, my skin is better, and I find if you have mast cell activation syndrome, you want to become strong. When I look back at photos of me on a higher fruit diet, where I think I was avoiding histamines and trying to dance my way around, is you will see I had a lot more lines, my skin was thinner, my hair was much, much thinner. So I also take, I should mention this, sea moss gel, which has more minerals. It seems minerals really help. So I just share this because I hope it helps some people recognize, or possibly, you don't even have to do what I'm doing. That's not what I'm saying. It's that sometimes when we don't, one of the things I don't talk about enough, and I think my brain blocked me from it, is how many years I suffered as a child where I knew nobody believed I was sick. Where it's like, Sky's just complaining again. Sky's got to come home from school again. Sky was sick yesterday, now she's playing with friends. And mast cell activation can be like that. And Kiko brought up in the live that we did in the podcast that I can be extremely sick, and the next day I'm up running and I'm doing like all these things. And she's like, it takes me days to overcome that. And I'm like, well, because it's mast cells, once they clear the system, I have no symptoms. And this went on for a long period of time as a child. So it's much better now because fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, all these like mystery illnesses or Epstein-Barr are all more recognized and accepted. But when I was a child, if something didn't show up in a blood test, you didn't have anything. So I'm kind of sharing this because that's pretty much a huge horror story. I think it's the reason it's taken me so long to talk about. It's probably some of the most trauma I have. It's one thing to be physically sick. It's another thing to feel that you're not believed until organs start being removed. But as I said, this day and age, it's a lot better. medical doctors and teachers and people are educated on mystery illnesses more. So I think that's so sea moss, moringa, and ashwagandha. So ashwagandha seemed to set me off a bit. So because these anything dried, and interesting, most of my life I did better with medical grade treatments than I did herbs, because the medical grade treatments never had histamines. If you have herbs on a shelf, they create histamines. Histamines come when you they're bacteria, they're histidines, which become histamines. So it's like an amino acid that comes on any food. That's why eating a raw food diet helps so many people. On top of being amazing, it's very low histamine. Even if there's histamines in the food, then really you're not getting the same amount as when you get the fermented foods, or you cook a meal and put in the fridge and all the bacteria gets these histidines, which create histamines, or they have histamines. And so, but yeah, back to ashwagandha. I hear a lot of people it works for. I just have to be careful because I'm really sensitive. And I know that moringa has a high amount of proteins that help a lot of people. And I do find hemp protein helps me. It's just getting it in. Once again, anything a bit dried is heavy. So, hey, Creative Heart and Sprinkle of Whimsy. It's so interesting with Mast Cell. You can feel so bad one day and the next. Yeah, it is like I can definitely say that when you get like a flu, you get a pattern like you get very sick, the body heats up, it goes on for days, you kind of peak and then you get better. With mast cell activation, you can literally feel like you're dying. Like a lot of panic attacks and dysregulation of the nervous system is mast cells, racing heart. And also the reason I think it helps a lot of people that follow me is if you're going through menopause, I did a big list. Where is that list? As estrogen decreases, mast cells activate. As estrogen decreases, cortisol increases, mast cells activate. As progesterone dysregulates, anything out of balance in the body can cause mast cells to overactivate, especially off the back of a virus. Like if you've had anything really, any traumatic event, but it seems in this society what's happening is people who have things like COVID, or they have shingles or chickenpox, or an extreme flu, is they have this long haul COVID or this long haul chronic fatigue. But it can actually happen off the back of a broken limb or a death in the family. I know people who have had deaths, like a nervous breakdown, but the dysregulation of the nervous system is essentially driven by mast cells being overactive. And I guess I'm not doing this to scare anybody, but if you can learn the patterns of your body and you learn things that set it off, all while I think having high omega-3s from chia, flax, and flax oil, natural antihistamines, minerals seem to help, staying very stable with blood sugars seem to help, you'll have a happier life. And we want that. It really affects psychiatric. It's involved with neurotransmitters. I do feel all my psychiatric issues came off the back of high histamine issues. It's just all encompassing. But there is a simple, clean, raw food or plant-based diet with nothing that's left in the fridge. And as I said, there is in the description of this live, a pack you can send off for, which has high and low histamine raw foods. It also has natural antihistamines. It has what I'm eating in a day. No, I've done no allergy tests. Oh, I did when I was younger, but the problem with all tests, so there's a great book I'm reading about Mast Cell Activation Syndrome. It's in my Amazon store. I can't think of the name right now. This is why I didn't do it. All the tests for mast cell activation, I got diagnosed by process of elimination. That it's just, as soon as I have histamines, especially off the back of a virus, I just peak. So they diagnose me. But a lot of the blood testing isn't definite. None of it is. Urine testing actually yields a higher chance that you'll be diagnosed with mast cell activation. But there is a test where they measure, I think, tryptophan. I'm not sure exactly what they measure, but you've got to be tested when you're stable. And you don't actually know when you're stable. You can have it going on and just not feel it. So they take your blood, and then when you have a big flare up, like you've got rashes and stuff, you have within 4 hours of that, you have to have a blood test. And then they say, but that may be wrong. All the tests may be wrong. I can't go through that trauma again. They diagnosed me after I had shingles, where I could not eat anything but very low histamine raw foods. Anything just set me off. And based on my past, they diagnosed me, but I just find that also traumatizing. But also, Dr. Brooke Goldner states that a lot of people who have allergies to foods, the body is supposed to become allergic. So we have variety, but also protectiveness. So if you eat only bananas, which are high histamine, but you eat only apples, is your body's job is to become allergic to it, because the body's job is to have nothing foreign in it. So it doesn't distinguish. It's more protective in the stomach, but it doesn't distinguish just because it's food we get nutrients from. Just because we have organs that break it down and eliminate it doesn't mean that the body does not want anything in it. And what tends to happen is she states that most of what she sees that comes back on allergy tests is what people have been predominantly eating. And that feeds back into we're better with variety, a whole lot of different foods. And that's why people become more allergic over time. When they, just like me, I ended up just eating grapes and watermelons for months. And then until you're allergic to that, you're like, what the frick do I do when that didn't have enough nutrients in it anyway to help me repair? So that's important to note as well. You may have, and these aren't true allergies where there's like IgE proteins that we are actually like anaphylactically allergic to, like peanuts from birth, or seafood or something from birth, or you're celiac from birth. If you develop even celiac, being allergic to the gluten protein as you age, more likely you've got yourself with leaky gut. So I think that's important, that if you have a generalized allergy test, you should show allergies to your favorite foods if you're consistently eating them. Hello! Yeah, so I think that's all important. And this is not just, yes, stress is a trigger. Stress is probably one of the only triggers, because you're so stressed that you eat and you get a reaction. You're so stressed that your system has had the virus or a flu and it has become stressed, and that's why you're overacting. Not having sleep, you overact. So I always say balance is, if you throw the body out of balance, you essentially have a flare. It's like I was really tired, run down, and been over exercising last week, and I noticed after I'd been in the shower that just the hot water had caused flushing, which is histamines. But I don't usually get it. It's because and people can call it inflammation or toxicity, but I like to think that the body's just doing its job. We just live in a very toxic world, a very stressful world. We've put the wrong things in our body a lot of our life. The more you stay in positivity, I promise you feel better when you're sick. You feel better when you're well. You can see your way through the darkness. We don't want to be, oh, poor me, I've got this, nobody else has got it, just me. And so when you get sick, you sit in it. It's like, what is it? Misery loves company. Don't do that. I promise you, I think the reason I even survived what I went through is because I was always kind of seeing the light in the dark. And yeah, it can really help, because I will say, because you get a sluggish gut and then you get that histamine build up in the gut, and then it also affects the neurotransmitters in the brain, and you're feeling down because you can't get out. It's like the worst combination. Being constipated and stuck in a bed before you even have pain is horrible. Okay, so you want to find ways to stay positive and be like, you know what, this is going on, but I'm going to drink water. I'm going to watch a positive podcast. I am going to do what movement I can. What makes me feel good today? It all starts leading the body to better choices and not spiraling, which can happen. Being chronically ill is just not fun. Been there, had that. The other thing that really helps me is my strength. So because I spend my time when I'm not sick, not being toxic, like when I was younger, when I wasn't sick, I'd want to go somewhere where there was alcohol so I could numb myself. Now I'm like, juices, and I do Pilates, I get in the ocean. This builds strength so that I stay away from being sick. But if I did get sick, I bounce back much faster. It's much nicer being chronically sick when you're stronger. I'm not saying everyone can start there, but if you do feel good, you're better off to do good for yourself. Everyone's better off, but especially if you're chronically ill, it's better to not sabotage and be like, you know, to make myself feel better, I'm going to buy myself a box of chocolates, and buy, you know, to make yourself feel better, buy some fruit. Buy some fruit that's low histamine. The more steps you do that make your body stronger and in love and feel better, the more you overcome everything in life. So I am in perimenopause. I think I'm having a lot of issues. Doctors never talk about mast cell. Yeah, and what I found about doctors is if you find a younger, more enthusiastic, and I barely see them, but I've just noticed this. If you find someone younger, really enthusiastic, they'll be very well versed and read on things that older doctors never had to learn, like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, POTS, the extent that women have with mental health from their period. This was not taught, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. But I find really enthusiastic young mast cell activation. Yes, could happen. This could happen. They're very well versed, and you feel more supported. So that might be helpful. But then it gets a bit delicate because with perimenopause, you want someone who's experienced it. You don't want a young 30-year-old doctor, male, talking to him about perimenopause. So it gets a bit tough. But I would think these days, if you went to a gynecologist, they would have heard, because a lot of these girls on TikTok who are going on anti-inflammatory diets for their PDD or their polycystic ovaries syndrome or the endometriosis, which is all mast cells as well, are all going on low histamine diets and finding all of it goes. And yeah, not that it was even raw or vegan, but you're definitely going to do better doing raw. You just feel more energized on raw foods. I could not eat cooked food now. No way. So yes, make sure you thumbs up and like. We're getting really close, guys, to 5,000. We really are. What do you do for anxiety? So first off, I will say for anxiety, it's very not existent with a raw food diet. As long as I'm hydrated from raw foods, I'm not having a lot of dehydrated foods or soy sauce, like tamaris or namashoyus or apple cider vinegars, which are high histamine. Those give me anxiety. Those fermented foods are literally the next day. It's like being hungover for me. And I'm silly. I sometimes put a tablespoon here, and the next day I'm like, why? Caffeine. This is matcha, and I find it doesn't do it. And I think because it's what, theobromine, is that what it is? It has like a slow breakdown, a slow rise and a slow breakdown. But when I tried coffee again, holy cow, my heart was beating out of my chest. What else? I need to have regular exercise, fresh air, being grounded, raw foods. If it doesn't really come up as long as I'm doing those things. It's come up because I've had too much dehydrated food, fermented foods, some sort of cacao. I don't have a lot of it. I have it like once a month at the moment. Though I did make some donuts yesterday, which I'll have on my birthday. And if it does come up, anything that comes up for me, if I hydrate, I can stop it. And it takes me back to when I used to be put into hospital, and before they give me any drugs or infusions or surgeries, if they give you fluids, half to 80%, maybe 70% of my symptoms can stop. And that doesn't happen because when a gut is not working or can't absorb things, it can't get fluid. But when I say hydrating, if I have a really bad mast cell flare-up or I have anxiety, I've never done it for anxiety, but anxiety comes off the back of a mast cell activation flare-up, but it's not my goal to fix, if you get what I'm saying. If I grab a case of coconuts, fresh coconut waters, and just drink those for a whole day, I can't feel anything but joy and love and peace, and I'm hydrating. Or I'll have green juices, and whatever I've got going on, aches, pains, they just stop. I just feel like a lot of us are dehydrated. Some of the things which can stop a panic attack I've spoken on before, and that is you've got a lot of blood flow running to the brain through the spine up around the neck, is get a cold or iced towel and put it here. You'll literally just calm that, and that vestibular system through the brain gets really overactive. But I wanted to say the vagus nerve, not vestibular system. You can calm it because all the nerves run down here. You can also put it on your wrists. But grounding also works, and don't get yourself overstressed. You would be surprised how much the universe will shine on you when you start looking after yourself, even if that means taking a step back from your job and you're like, well, I get less money. Well, all that money may end up being spent on a heart attack. So it's better off to do that, find a way to manage your days. is really important, I think. What's the best thing for arthritis? I would say kind of what I'm doing is what I see in Dr. Brooke Goldner's group, and I experience it myself, and I've never been diagnosed with arthritis, but anytime I get dehydrated, whether that's too much salt, too much dehydrated food, not enough liquids, or even, I find my joints go stiff. I can't move my neck. And this came off the back of, I had a lot of chronic disease. My joints click and crack. And that essentially would be, there's the digestion element. That the idea is that we eat raw foods to free up digestive energy, because when you've got excess energy in the body, it will go to start healing different joints. But if I was to say what it feels like hydration that comes from green juice, coconut water, nothing too sweet. That seems to kind of dehydrate me. I seem to get more movement from my joints. I'm better at running. I'm more focused. But I can't speak specifically because I never had arthritis, but I do notice how much my joints lock up with too much salt, dehydrated food, condiments, and not staying hydrated from fresh foods. So, like this, like most of my morning I have a matcha, but I'm always having green juice, just rehydrate. At the moment I overeat overeating. At the moment I overeat. My fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue flare up. That was something, being underweight, and that I was just packing that raw food in until I noticed how much my digestion just stops, and then I lock up. I call it lock-up syndrome. I notice my toes arch back when I sleep. I sleep with like this big belly, as if I'm like nursing a belly, and how much my body just doesn't need as much food as I thought. But that, I think, took a bit of time. But yeah, don't overeat. Balance. Anytime you throw your body out of balance, you'll get some sort of symptom. I read on Reddit that tons of people went to their doctors and said they think they have POTS, and the doctors said they didn't know what it was. That's insane. That's more common than I think a doctor diagnosing, isn't it? That's what I learnt, is it's very rare that even if a doctor does know, usually, I've said this before, I think it's only a handful of families of medication that actually fix something. Hundreds of thousands are just to suppress. So even though, it's better off to have the most anti-inflammatory, loving, calming lifestyle and just let the body fix itself than getting into that shenanigans. I also think, I think isn't it postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome? For me, that comes when everything mast cell related is extreme. So I don't have blood sugar issues or POTS, or chronic fatigue for me comes on pretty quick, like really, but I've had it since I was quite young. But though the POTS one for me does not come on until my histamine issues are quite extreme. And you stand up and your heart, your vision starts to go. If you've got low blood sugar and you stand up fast and you're like, oh, you have to grab onto something, it's like that. And then your heart kicks in to raise blood to the brain, and it's like boom, 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 and you're standing there and you're like, oh my God. But then they do a scan and technically you have nothing wrong with you. And that's a lot of these: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, PDD, mental health, and you cannot see mast cells. It's all involved, even if that's not the direct diagnosis. Every time blood rushes to an area, the immune system goes. The mast cells have these granules which sit on the outside of them of prostaglandins, cytokines, all these things which are, their job is to create like that redness and inflammation, the histamines, but signal to the immune system, T cells, B cells, what's got to come in. And they come in and they do their job, but it's an overactive system. So I think the stress one is massive. Don't discredit like just stopping and hydrating. That's huge. So, what's interesting? If I don't make myself stop eating, I could just eat endlessly. I like that. So Tessa said, if you know what's interesting, if I don't make myself stop eating, I could eat endlessly. And do you know what is sad? Is this only happens to me with raw foods because they don't have this dense, sickening effect that other foods have. But the other foods I eat and I get sick instantly. Raw foods, especially fruit, I could just keep eating. That's why if I have nuts or seeds or a bit of hemp protein in it or more greens or veggies or a bit of salt, I seem to stop. If not, I over consume. And then I stress myself out. I get really upset because I'm uncomfortable and I know what comes next. So I did find salt, I think because I had the electrolyte problem, I was trying to eat foods to get salt, and the foods that I ate, which was a lot of sweet fruit, did not have enough sodium. So I'd copiously, in minerals, I'd eat a lot and then be really sad. And now that I have more balance, I have fruit, I have greens, I have nuts and seeds, I have things to support my immune system now. I seem to do much better. But yeah, that, because they're so light. So it's about learning, I think. It doesn't make them bad. Have you done any heavy metal or parasite detoxes? Many people say the parasites cause these random problems. I've tried them but never seen anything. So parasites are symbiotic. They do not, like viruses or bacteria, touch a healthy cell in a human body. They will only eat and like mucus or waste or half-dead necrotic cells. So they're doing a job. And then you have mast cell activation. You go put in a massive dose of a herb. What do you think that will do? It's going to make something sick, which was eating something you didn't want inside of you anyway. And also it's going to cause a mast cell reaction. And everyone's like, suffer, you've got to suffer to get well. And I'm like, no, you've got to love. Give yourself love, you will get much further, because every time you get sick, you're learning you've got to punish yourself, right? So none of these cleanses are very nice. And you get on a cycle of thinking, I feel sick, I need to go and punish myself. And that was where I was with, I think, the medical industry. And what I do now is love myself well. So I released a lot of parasites 3 years into the raw food diet. They just started coming out. And obviously, I think I must have got rid of a lot of yucky cells, but I didn't do anything. And I didn't suffer during my journey. So if you have mast cell activation, be very wary putting strong herbs in. I cannot do it. But also know that the parasite cannot touch a healthy cell. So you're better off loving yourself well and letting the parasite go, I got no more food, and going, because essentially it's cleaning up for you. If you get rid of it, you haven't got rid of the waste. You've only got rid of the parasite, and more than likely there'll be eggs in there. It'll just come back. But the only time I release parasites, I just think we discredit how much we can heal when we think of positive and love. And we're just not, no one's taught that. Everyone thinks that you're sick, you've now got to make yourself even sicker before you get well. And I'm like, that's trauma. You're just making more trauma. And then so every time you don't feel well, you think you've got to go and fast for 2 weeks, and you've got to go now put in 50 herbs and colonics. And I'm not discrediting that having a little bit to support, but a lot of these are like, people are making a lot of money off you making yourself sick. That's toxic. So that, I'm not telling people what to do, just be mindful of that. I have found great success in how my body responds with going, oh, that feels good. I feel stable. Thank you. And then the decisions in my life are, this job feels good. I feel good. I feel stable. And that is predominantly how I got well, is just what makes me feel good, as opposed to, well, somebody said this works, I'll force myself. And then this force seems to come back and I get everything tenfold. And my whole life story was essentially that. But it's hard to teach people that, because we come out of the medical industry being tortured, and we kind of move that over to natural therapies. And as for heavy metals, I'm just like, if I look after the body, it'll do its job and get rid of things for me. That's like my whole hypothesis, my whole mentality is, as long as I feel good consistently, I make good choices, I make more good choices, more good comes into my life. I don't eat, I don't know what that means. I've actually got to jump onto Wonder if many people go to the and anxiety and find it nothing's wrong. It is. Basically, you've got an overactive immune system and everything is very overactive. And it's just find ways to calm. Yeah, I just think look after yourself, love yourself. The Dr. Morse herbs make me extremely sick. My mast cell activation syndrome goes through the roof to the point that every time I've tried the herbs, I've ended up on a strong painkiller. Not for very long. I had to, whether it's a migraine or the nerve pain is so horrendous, I'll be like, Mum, I can't do, and Mum will give me something to stop it. And then I reset. And then I go 2 months later, oh, I'll do this again. It's unbelievable. And the first thing is I don't use the alcohol. A lot of people say it's the alcohol solution of the herb. I use the capsules, and it's the dried herbs. Once you dry something and put it on a shelf, not only do you strengthen the potency, but the main thing is if you have mast cell activation, you're changing the bacteria. Fresh food for mast cell people is optimal. Even the lowest histamine response I get is from the histamine raw foods. The biggest response is everything that's sat on a shelf or in a fridge. So, love you guys. I will see you all soon. I hope that helped lots of you.